Hi, today I'm fixing smothered pork steak along with rice, sweet potatoes, and I'm not sure of the vegetable to decide. We use green beans all the time, so I made two. I don't know, corn or something. I haven't decided yet. But to make these very simple sweet potatoes, you're going to add 2 rounded tablespoons of margarine. And it's actually good. You're not going to be able to taste the difference in the margarine and the butter. I use a third of a cup of sugar. Now, if I had brown sugar, I would do half brown sugar and half the white sugar, but I'm out of it. And then, hold on a moment. Okay. Then I use ground cinnamon. If I had to guess the measurement, I say about a half of a teaspoon. And I also use ground nutmeg in mine. And this is basically all you need. Now, what will happen, sometimes you get sweet potatoes and it's not there. Some are not as sweet as others. And so you may need to add a little more sugar. But I try to keep it low because there is sugar. The potatoes are just naturally sweet. If you bake them, you wouldn't have to put any sugar on them. But I'll show you the finished product. Okay, for the smothered pork steaks, I've already been frying them. I just season them with seasoned salt, um, black pepper, little garlic. I just fry them on both sides. I lightly flour, not a lot of flour, on both sides. And then what I'll do is I'll remove the grease from the pan and I'll add my seasonings, my onion, bell pepper, and my minced garlic. And I'll use that to deglaze the pot. Then I'll add my water to it. And I'll bring that to a boil. I'll pour that over my pork steaks. The other ones I'll have them all in the oven now. And then I just let it cook for about an hour, hour and a half. Depends on how tender I want them, how thick they are. So some things you can give set a time, and some you just can't. You just have to gauge it. You know, you get better at it the more you cook. But I'm going to come back and show you when I put this together, the finished product. Okay, into the pan, I'm going to now deglaze it by adding my onion, bell pepper, and my minced garlic that I just chopped up. Put down and give me the flour. I also added about a tablespoon of flour because I didn't use very much flour when I fried my pork steaks because that makes the gravy entirely just too thick for me. But anyway, I add a little flour just to thicken it agent when I do mix this with the pork steaks that have already been fried. And what I do as I fry them, I put them in my roasting pan and I place them back in the oven. And as I put the uh, the last fried in there, I also pour the grease that settles out. So I try to eliminate all that grease. And if you notice, there's no grease in the pan. I found that you can eliminate the grease. This soul food doesn't have to be greasy. You can eliminate all that grease. As I said, I strain the grease out of the pot, and I also eliminate the grease when I'm deglazing the pan as much as possible. And as this cooks just a little, I like it to all my seasonings to cook in along with that fried pork steak. Just basically trying to get that flour browned a little. It's not very much flour. Now, if I see where when I'm mixing it as it's cooking, it's not thick enough, I add a little flour to it then. But hopefully it'll be thick enough. I'm not going to add a whole lot of gravy to it. But like I said, you season your pork chops with the seasonings that you like. Lightly flour, or you can actually fry them without using flour at all. I just use a little flour to help thicken it, and that's why I just put a little here. And then once you get through, you from all your frying, you pour that. I use canola oil when I fry. I pour that off, and then I add in my onion, bell pepper, garlic. I don't like celery in my stewed meats unless it's chicken. But then you add that You stir this until your flour is browned or until your onions are translucent, because like I said, they're going to continue to cook when your when you smother pork steaks are cooking. Then I'm just going to add some water to this, and I'm going to pour this along with the water directly over the pork steaks, and I like to put them in the oven and let them bake until they're done. So if you hold one moment, I'm going to add the water, and I'll be right back. Okay. I've added the water. I'm going to let this come up to a boil, and once it comes to a boil, I'm going to add it to my pork steaks, and I'll place it in the oven. And then I'll show you what that looks like when I add it. Now, if it's not enough water at that time, I'll add some more water then. But right now, I'm just going to let this come to a boil. Then all the seasonings, flavors are going to combine. And then I'll show you. Hold one moment. Okay, I finished boiling, we're bringing the water to a boil, and now I've added the seasonings and the water to my pork steaks. This is the roasting oven. I'm going to actually bake them in the oven on 350. Well, first what I do, I place it in the oven on about 400 for about the first 15 to 20 minutes just to get everything boiling together. Then I turn it down to 350 until it's done. Now, some people say hour and a half. Well, it may be an hour and a half for some. It depends on the cut of the meat, how thick you want your gravy, how tender you want your pork steak. So you have to learn as a cook to just pay attention to what you like. You may take it out and see it's not as tender as you want. You may have to put it back in. But for me, I can actually use my fork to tell. Um, but I'll show you. Now at this time, I'm going to also add a little extra seasoning. You have to be careful. I use Tony's saturated Creole seasoning, and it can be a bit salty if you use a lot. So I've already seasoned the meat with it. I already had a little of it in my flour because I season my flour as well. So I'll just put just a little, not very much of that. Garlic powder and black pepper. And guess what? Right now, I'm not going to even stir. I'm just going to let it cook down into the food. Okay, and so we're going to get this 15 minutes at 400, and then we're going to turn it down to 350 for about an hour and a half. All right, here's the completed sweet potatoes. They're not candied because I have to use too much sugar. They are flavorful, however. And here is the completed pork steaks. Okay, happy eating.